Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have had a wonderful day thus far. I know that the video is slightly later than usual, but as I expressed in team selection, I had some prior commitments, hence why it is at this time of release, but better late than never. Today, in solving your problems, I have quite a bit for you. I have a finalization of my team and my strategy and my transfers. I have a finalization on the triple captain, which you can probably guess by the title of the video. We will be looking at the bench boost. We will be looking at benching dilemmas. We will interpret expected minutes for numerous players. We'll be looking at Aston Villa mids. We'll look at press conference and injury updates. And we'll have a look ahead to the potential double gaming 36 and blank gaming 37, because I know a lot of you were interested in that. And it certainly does warrant discussion. So without anything else needing to be said, apart from the fact that if you enjoy the video, I would greatly appreciate a like on it, and equally a subscribe for the thousands of you who have not done that but watch regularly, and the new ones, of course, as well. Now we can hop into the video. We will start with what I'm most excited for, and I imagine if you are following suit, then you're very excited as well for it. And that is the triple captaincy on Jean-Philippe Mateta instead of Alexander Isak, or even captaining Isak alone. There are some points to discuss that I would like to discuss, where I am going to try and justify to you, but more so try and sell you on my captaincy, or at least get you to understand why I'm doing it. And then we will talk about the potential usage of a triple captain down the line. The first thing is Adam Wharton, and he's a huge deal of why I'm slightly more comfortable captaining Jean-Philippe Mateta than maybe most people. I can see him against Newcastle's high man-to-man press, with his press resistance, and particularly his passing ability, that progressive passing ability, even being able to find that space and that route almost, if you want, in such a crowded space in the middle. Well, he's got that in a way that I don't think maybe anyone else in the league does. At least there is no Englishman who certainly does, right? Hence why he is very likely to partner Rice at an upcoming major tournament, in my opinion. And this is one of the better ways to break the press. You don't have to play like 100 passes, like sideways, and then like up back, or like a sequence of up back through, but rather you can just give the ball to Adam Wharton, and I think he's good enough to find Eze and Sarr. And then going on to the next stage of those type of moves, Eze and Sarr, their ability to carry from deep, and the fact that you've got one for the left half space, one for the right, they're powerful carriers. Again, they'll be not only press resistant when Newcastle press them, but they've also got the physicality in which they can contend with the likes of Tonali, Bruno, Joe Linton, right? Okay, fine, Eze is probably not as strong as any three of them, but on the ball, it's a different matter, right? And I think that having that is so useful, because they actually get out when you are compact and you are deep, and they will be like that for a fair bit of time, is so useful. They can get up the pitch so quickly and hurt teams, right? Then I speak about, on the slide, creating those specific moments to hurt Manchester City and Newcastle. Now, against Brighton, City, there was one particular sequence where I remember City gave the ball away, and Brighton transitioned on them so quickly, right? It was just a poor horizontal pass, and Brighton transitioned so quickly. And City, if they are to have that Palace block pinned, I think when you have defenders like Richards, good, Lacroix, good, Mitchell, good, and I think Ben Chilwell at left wing back, and we'll come on to that, will certainly help. And Munoz on the other side. With Hughes, you know what? That boy, I don't think he will be given the credit for it, maybe due to some form of aesthetic bias, but he's got a good engine on him, and he'll get through a lot of work, and same with Wharton, right? And I can just imagine there, in those type of moments where City are hitting them and they have them deep, and they've had their struggles against these deeper blocks, just losing the ball, transitions occur, and then Palace go up the pitch. And I think in those specific moments, they can certainly hurt Manchester City. With Newcastle, it's more so just how aggressive they are and how they have a tendency to potentially turn games into a slightly more basketball-like nature. The game that springs to mind, for example, in recent times is the game against Nottingham Forest. And I can see that happening a little bit against Palace, whilst Palace not giving too much away, maybe as much as Forest did. And all of those moments, I think, are very suitable for Mateta, because he can get on the end of a lot of these moves. Then in terms of the stylistic suitability, there'll be enough of those types of transitions, there'll be enough counter-attacks, and there'll be enough space behind whereby he can leverage how impressive of a footballing body he has, right? The last thing is, given how devastating they are going forward, in Eze, Sarr, Mateta, Munoz, and Ben Chilwell down the left flank. Because if you remember, when he's played as a left wing back, he's done really well going forward. I think that they actually can afford themselves to defend a little bit deeper than maybe other sides do. So, for example, you see Man United, right, and they build in a certain way, and they build in a less aggressive way than Palace, albeit playing a three at the back as well. I don't think they have necessarily the quality of players whereby they can execute certain things. Whereas with Palace, I think they can. And because they can attack so well, I think they'll allow them to defend deeper and then go from there, right? And they say attacking is the best form of defending, but I would just like to reverse the theory for this particular example, and I think it works quite well. So those are all reasons that I think it's a decent shout to Captain Jean-Philippe Mateta. I'm very happy with it. Not to mention the fact that he has all the fundamentals to the locker, right? Penalties, expected minutes, especially with Nketiah out, and Eze out in the first game. Not Eze, by the way, Romain Eze. So there's no one really to come off the bench for the front three. Yeah, Kamada, but away at Manchester City, I'm not so sure. He's in good form, and like I said, stylistic suit, and he's got the fundamentals, right? Most of them, if not all. That's great. In terms of Isak, the positives are so obvious that I'm not going to go into them like too much. You know that he's the best striker in the league. You know that Newcastle are on a massive high, and you know that they've got momentum going for them. Their 2 games are at home. You know they're a better side than Man United, etc., right? But Man United's 5-4-1 has actually off the ball has been quite good as of late, right? And you can just reference the game against Liverpool, and they've improved since. And they gave Liverpool a tough time. Now, if you look at Newcastle's weapons to break down these deeper blocks, I'd say the closest outside of Isak is Bruno Guimaraes, but even he isn't the perfect one in your most attacking 8. But Barnes, Murphy, Tino Livramento, and Trippier in this particular role, they're not really the types to break down this block, and neither is Joel Linton. So I honestly think against that 5-4-1 they could struggle. Not to say he won't get chances, I just don't think he'll get them at the frequency that maybe most think he does. And then Palace have been so good away from home defensively, and it's very much a similar case given the systems are similar. There's a lot of difference, for example, in the way they build, and I wouldn't be surprised if you've seen more high turnovers in the Newcastle Palace game, just because they afford themselves a little bit more risk. For example, I spoke about in their game against Brighton, wide centre-back, staggered pivot, big spaces. Because Man United don't do that as much, and for example, Palace's wing-backs were so high, whereas United's won't be. And so, like, if they can get a high turnover there, Isak could profit. But overall, I think there's enough whereby Isak could genuinely blank. And that's what I'm hoping for. And I'm going for Mateta. So, yeah, that is that. I also encourage you to read my team reveal on Fantasy Football Hub if you would like me to sell you on it further, because I had some time to write that article. I thought it was a good one. And then lastly, on the triple captainship, playing it in 36 instead of 32, I think there's merit, like quite significant merit to it. For me, if I was looking at 36, what I would want to do is play it on Mateta for Spurs away, Wolves at home. But with a cup to follow, maybe they just take it a little bit easy if the league is in a bit of a nothing position. I like Chris Woods as well. I think West Ham away could be tough, but Leicester at home makes it quite good. However, let's say Forest weren't to win or Palace weren't to win, then you wouldn't have that double afforded to yourself. The only reason I'm slightly hesitant on Marmoush is, whilst I'm quite confident his expected minutes are secure, I mean, you never really know with Pep, and Haaland might even be back. I don't think he will, but just something to note out. I personally think the final is going to be Villa versus Forest, which would mean that, and I think with Villa is like you could go Watkins, but what if his expected minutes aren't good at the time? Same with Rashford, and yeah, Rodgers probably will have good expected minutes, but I think you'd rather triple captain Mateta at least this week than Rodgers in 36. So it only really leaves me with Chris Wood, given how I think the cup results could go, and I just prefer Mateta this week, which is odd to say given he has Leicester at home, but I just think these are fixtures where there's a genuine brace on offer. And now we can get into the rest. Now let us move on to the rest of the folk in the form of Anthony Gordon. And I quote, "He was back out on grass for a session yesterday, so we'll assess him today to see how he's responded to that. Then we'll have to make a late call on whether he's available for Sunday." The thing about this is, it doesn't sound that great, right? Because he's been back out on grass, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's been training with the team in full training. Like, be out with the grass and training with the women's team, doing some fitness drills like Saka was doing, right? For example. So, I don't think that sounds great. I think I would rather hear that he's done a session. However, this is Newcastle United. And whilst I'm sure they are very honest gentlemen away from the press conference table, when it comes to that press conference table, they are pathological liars. And the fact that this isn't as bullish as maybe you'd want it as a Gordon owner actually makes me think that he's got more of a chance than they suggest. And that's just genuinely how I'm interpreting it, because they have quite literally lied about basically every year. So I think it is quite a safe practice. And then Eddie Howe's twin in Mikel Arteta, when it comes to the press conference table, pathological lies. Again, I'm sure away from it, I'm sure they are very honest gentlemen, and they do genuinely seem like lovely guys, very competent as well. But when they say something in the press conference, I certainly don't take it at face value. But he did say on Saka and Rice they are both fit, and then went on to say they are available for tomorrow, and I'm sure they are. I don't doubt that, but whether they start, and maybe he was indicating that, I'm not entirely sure. We will come on to Saka's expected minutes, and Rice we'll talk about as well later. Lacroix and Richards are back. Brilliant. Great for Palace. One thing I did mention in the Jean-Philippe Mateta slide is that having them back improves your ball playing ability from the back, getting those balls into Wharton, into the wing backs, into Sarr, into Eze, and then you can go from there, right? So that's a big deal. And obviously, they're two of the best defenders of the club. No Nketiah, good for Mateta's expected minutes. Builds up even more match fitness, and then who knows, maybe he plays a whole 90 against Newcastle as well. Liverpool, Conor Bradley will start. I know some people are thinking of going there. One, to get the West Ham fixture now, and then two, for the bench boostable fixture in 33 with Leicester away. For me, personally, still prefer Neco Williams, just because of the utility you can get down the line in 36. He will guaranteed have Leicester at home in 36. Now, he might have a double as well, but if you get Bradley or Konate, you'll have Liverpool. Liverpool, you have Arsenal at home, which is not exactly the most attractive fixture. Clive and Matoma are both to be assessed, and it seems like they're both close calls. Iraola said he doesn't know Clive, and Matoma will have a late test. So that is just an update there. That is just to mainly give you a summary of that. I'll go back on Gordon because there's not too much on him in the rest of the slides, but there is on Saka, so you can talk about him then. I am still undecided as to what I would do with him specifically, and I'll touch on my team later. I'm just going to wait to get as much information as I possibly can, and then make a move Saturday morning, or at least decide. I will update you via a YouTube post or a next tweet as to what I'm looking to do. Now we move on to benching dilemmas. And what I've seen is there are so many different combinations, again, that people have. And I cannot cover all of them, but I thought I would cover the most important one. If you are in a strong enough position to bench Omar Marmoush at home to Crystal Palace, then well played to you, sir or ma'am. That is so genuinely impressive. And I've seen one team, specifically Chris Tant, who works for Fantasy Football Hub, who's a contributor there. I strongly recommend you go and follow him. Do some great captain articles. His team is strong enough to bench Marmoush, whereby it's completely justifiable. And that is so impressive. But most of you probably won't be in that position. And as such, I wouldn't just do it for the sake of it. Because Manchester City's number 9 at home in a fixture. Like, it's not the best fixture in the world, but it's not the worst fixture. Some of the people I've seen in bench for, like, expect him wouldn't do that. On penalties, he will be on. We'll have set piece. And he's the number. And he looks good. He looks sharp, irrespective of how he looks. Raya versus Martinez is a somewhat popular one, and for me, I would go Martinez. I rate Southampton's attack higher than the general opinion has it at, but when it's a likely weakened Arsenal side to some extent, right? Bare minimum, no Gabriel, probably not preferred front three. Your midfield would be weaker from a defensive standpoint, and you're playing Brian Mbeumo, Wissa and co. I have to respect Brian Mbeumo, Wissa and co. So for me, I go Martinez. Will it get it done? I've actually been quite good defensively outside of that PSG game and the Forest game. It sounds weird, but they did rotate in the Forest game. The PSG game is PSG. Right, Bukayo Saka. I actually have the same view as everything. I'm not as bearish on him starting as everyone else. I do think that there is the possibility for it, simply because there is 8 days between the first leg and the second leg. I think building some rhythm and momentum is really important for him coming into the back end of the season. I also think his legs need minutes, and this is a good way to give him like 60 in a game that probably won't get too feisty. So risk of injury is probably a little bit reduced, albeit his injury isn't a contact one; it's more muscular. It doesn't have too much of an impact, but you take every little you can get. I guess it's still probable that he's benched, but I still think he comes on for half an hour, and he's good enough to get something done. So I think if you have to start him, even if you don't know if he's going to start, really not the end of the world. I wouldn't say it's the same case as Foden. If you start Foden and he's benched in his 20-minute cameo, am I really expecting anything? No. But if you told me Saka gets 30 minutes and you told me he returned twice, wouldn't really be surprised. No, I wouldn't. Full stop. Moving on to Phil Foden, early kickoff, hopefully get a leak and go from there. I would say have a planned course of action. If he starts, what are you doing with your team? If he's benched, what are you doing with your team? And don't waver from it in those last 5 minutes. Don't get FOMO because someone's going to do this. Just whatever you've decided, do. If you don't get a leak, well, then you're going to have to guess, I guess. Do I think he's going to start? Yeah, because I don't think it makes much sense to play De Bruyne in this game. And if he's going to drop De Bruyne and Foden and then play Bernardo in the middle as an 8 with Gundo, then I disagree. I've disagreed with a lot of stuff he's done this season, but I don't think he will do that personally. I think work. But yeah, anyway, we'll see. But yeah, I do think he starts. Again, I think he starts from a footballing standpoint because it makes so much sense for him to be in that right 8 as opposed to anyone else. But just with like the way he's going at the moment, form, physically, mentally, apparently, from some of the tweets on X, then it makes more sense for him to potentially be on the bench. But purely football, I think he starts. Conte, I think he starts. He had 45 minutes worth of rest against Forest. Second leg's at home. He won't have to travel too much this to Villa, right? And they're going to do that anyway. The lead becomes even more important with that third goal, I feel like, because overturning a 2-goal deficit against this Paris Saint-Germain side seems very tough. So I personally think that he's going to start, and that makes my life a lot easier. And finally, William Saliba versus Josko Gvardiol. Head says Saliba because the Arsenal defense is so good. But my heart says Gvardiol. One, because the Brentford attack is so good, but more so because I actually think there's just a little bit more attacking upside associated to him. I say a little bit more because when Gabriel's out, Saliba takes a far bigger role in terms of being the threat from set pieces. If I had to choose one right now, I think I'd go Hart and go Gvardiol. That is what I suggested to someone earlier. But it's so close and it's so subjective, and I would really just go off your own instinct. There are so many ways you could argue it either way. Even the fact that like you want to maximize your seeding of your own team and hence you'd bench Gvardiol doesn't really make too much sense because everyone's got Palace, so it's not really that big of a deal. Like triple Palace as well. Yeah, I would just say go with your instinct, do what you think makes sense. And I don't actually have too much of an opinion here because I think it's so close. Bench boost. Similar to the Bukayo Saka dilemma, I share the exact same view as I did in Everything You Need. For the most part, I think it's quite obvious whether you have a good bench boost. I've seen one particular involved with Van Nissen and Verbruggen, and it had Estepinian. But when you have like double at home to Leicester, a striker at home to Fulham, and Fulham are no rollover, right? But still, Van Nissen at home to Fulham, you play it, right? It makes a lot of sense to play it. So in those cases, yeah, just play it where it's good. But the fact you have to question whether you have a good bench boost or not, and in reality, it's not really that difficult to rate, right? How good your bench boost is. And you're probably concerned due to expected minutes risk, / the fact that you don't think like Saliba and Gvardiol are keeping clean sheets. It's very indicative of its strength, in my opinion. And as such, I would just let it go if it's not that good, because you always have next game week. You can use a transfer, you can slightly adjust it, and you can make it better. And naturally, these transfers that you use in 33 could have an adverse effect on your season, right? Because I'm not that far away from the end. Equally, if you want to like rush it up or increase the timeline, speed up the timeline, just because you've got an expected minutes risk, then all of a sudden I'm not so keen on playing it in 32. For example, if you have Morgan Rogers on your bench, I'm not playing it because I'm not bench boosting an expected minutes risk, right? That's ridiculous to me, especially when everyone is playing 3 at the back. In reality, like everyone's 3 at the back. Okay, I might play 4, but pretty much everyone's playing 3 at the back. So you only have 1 attacker on your bench. And for him to be an expected minutes risk, you're basically getting a 1 pointer plus 3 defenders. Especially in this Premier League season. So many goals, so hard to keep it clean. I think it's so difficult to justify. So for me, I like a lot of them more next week. And if it's not that good this week, you don't have to play it. And you know what? Even if you end up like doing something else in 33 for whatever reason, right? Let's just say you don't even play a chip this time. You play a triple captain in 33 because you're so bullish on Saka. Okay, fine. You just play the bench boost down the line. It won't be optimal, right? Because you try to optimize it for 32, but it's not the end of the world. And in those cases, maybe you get it out of the way. But you will know far better than I do because you can see your team. I just think in most cases, it's obvious. Fairly obvious, at least. You've got like, last thing, if you've got Saliba and Gvardiol and you don't really want to bench boost them, you have Saliba and Gvardiol at home in 2 fixtures, +1, right? In that case, okay, fine. If you've got to use transfers as well to make it better, and you don't like them as much, don't do it. Double game week 36 and blank game week 37, potentially. I'm inclined to agree with a lot of the comments that I saw under team selection, because I do think that these game weeks are being glossed over. I think they're very important. They will provide potentially just as many doubles as 33 and just as big of a blank as 34. However, we are looking like not having any chips to navigate it. What do? I don't mind if you hold back now and you, for example, are looking to use a chip down the line, or you're going to use transfers in a more aggressive manner down the line, hence you're holding them back or using them in a strategical way where you're getting Neco Williams, for example, so that whilst he doesn't have the best fixture in 33 on the bench boost, in 36 you get the value, right, from that transfer. I think that's absolutely okay. And should you wish to prioritize those down the line, by all means, go and do it. What I would say is City and Villa have a good chance of doubling in that. So and Palace, right, because the 3 of the 14 in the semi-final. So when they will double in 33, getting like triple Villa, triple Palace, and triple C, or at least like 3-3-2, sets you up well for that. You can obviously start to incorporate some Nottingham Forest in your defense, Ariola in goal, Hillman for 33 bench boosts, and it becomes easier. So should you wish to take a little bit of gloss off the bench boost in 33, or your team just in general now, absolutely justifiable, and you certainly should be looking at that game week with a plan. I've looked at it. I think I'll arrive with 7 doublers in 36. Maybe you have to take one hit to get a 4-11 out in 37, and the team was good in 38. So plan it. Finally, let us discuss the Aston Villa midfielders and my team quickly. Remember, one thing with these guys, they have double game week 36 utility potentially, right? We don't know. Get through in the semi-final, but should they do, they'll have another double, which is before the blank, so you'll definitely be interested. Rodgers is the most simple one for me. He probably doesn't play Southampton away, albeit he could, because it's Emery and it's Rodgers, and you never know. But after that, he has the best expected minutes by a mile. And where you'll want him like to have those expected minutes, especially in something like 37, should he not double, right? Or in 36, should he double? One of those two things can happen. And he's in good form, and he's in very good form. And every time I start him, he does wonders for me this season. He's been arguably my player of the season. I think he's such an easy buy from 33, but not so much 32, because I don't think that he's going to start. In my opinion, he could, but I don't think he will. Asensio and Marlon, they're like the opposite to Rashford. They probably start Southampton, whereas Rashford doesn't, but their expected minutes thereafter probably aren't quite as good as Rashford's, and I think you'd favour Rashford for the penalties and the goal threat in general, especially in comparison to Marlon. I've seen that people say Asensio starts one of Newcastle or Manchester City. I think that makes sense in some sense, but I also could see him bench for both games. I don't think necessarily 2 games which do him. Like, I can just imagine like Tonali, Bruno, and Joelinton really hassling him, and then maybe he plays City, right? Maybe he doesn't, because Unai Emery doesn't mind playing John McGinn in the middle in those type of games. That's something to explain. I'm not as hot on Asensio as most people. I feel like after this Southampton game, there's not that much to look forward to because of the expected minutes. And if you don't hit in the Southampton game, look, it could very well be like a Ramsey, Marlon, Watkins show. But then all of a sudden, not looking like a pretty transfer. You're blocking Rashford, but in particular Morgan Rodgers, and you've used a transfer. Rashford obviously spoken like, like a via media of Rodgers and Asensio Marlon. He has a bit of everything combined together. But for me, Rodgers stand out. And if you're not going to get Rodgers, honestly, for this game week alone, I would just leave. Like, I don't think it's worth punting on Asensio Marlon, given how precious free transfers are. So yeah, look, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. It's just not my like preference in most spots, because most people don't have that luxury. Some teams I've seen are genuinely perfect, and if you want to do it, by all means, go ahead. I think it makes a lot more sense in your case. But where your teams are not perfect, have challenges like mine, wouldn't do it. I could get Asensio Marlon this week, but I don't think it's worth it. And then Tielemans is just there because his expected minutes will probably be really good. He might get like an assist or a goal here or there. I wouldn't, but if you're really interested in the expected minutes, plus a gamble on the output, I would say, then you can go. To conclude with my own team, what I will be doing, it should say largely the same as before, and there are actually quite a few grammatical errors and words missing in that paragraph and sentence, so I do apologize. I'm happier to play Conte now than I was when I filmed team selection, because I'm more bullish on him starting this game. And as such, having a third defender isn't really an issue, because Bird, Munoz, and Conte cover it. But then it's very much a case of, okay, is Anthony Gordon going to do what I want him to? And same with Phil Foden. If only one of them, so if Gordon gets minutes in the first game and plays the second, or Foden starts, then I will go Gabriel to Neco Williams, and I will play 4-3-3. If both of them do, then I'm probably less inclined to get Neco Williams this game week, save a transfer, and enjoy both those midfielders. If neither of them are looking like they're going to turn up and start, then I think it's Foden, Savinho, and Gabriel to Neco Williams, with Conte starting in the 4-3-3. Those are the 3 alternatives. I'm still not super sold on Savinho, because it's like, he doesn't score that many goals, right? But I think he can get assists. He's good on the bonus system when he does, and he's just a good footballer with doubles and utility down the line, right? So that's kind of how I'm framing it. We'll see what happens, though. I'll probably get Savinho, but like I said, I will update you. And that is all she wrote for this one, ladies and gentlemen. This will be a huge game week in the season. I wish you the very, very, very best of luck. If you have not already, drop a like on the video if you enjoyed, and equally subscribe. I'm going to now go and edit this very quickly. as soon as possible for you. I wish you the very best of luck. Have a wonderful weekend, and I shall see you for Transfer Sunday. Goodbye.